The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Access Fort Wayne is a department of the Allen County Public Library. If you or anyone you know might be interested in making a television show, please call 260-421-1250.
Hi, Dr. Rudy Cashman. Welcome to the show, the Mind, Body, Spirit Wellness Show. This is going to be very interesting today because we're going to be speaking about addiction. What is addiction? To be perfectly clear about it, we're all addicted to something. For me, it might be tennis or pickleball or maybe coffee, which is not that addictive. But it's really, our body is designed really, for example, to seek sugar to stay alive. Nature, God, whatever you want to call it, designed it so. So first, let me tell you a little bit about how this works in our brain. In our body, Candace Pert, she wrote a book called Molecules of Emotion, 1970 or so. Really, it made me a different kind of a doctor when I realized the way the physiology of our body works. She was looking through an electron microscope where you can see smaller and smaller things at the National Institutes of Health, and she was looking at cells. We have trillions of them in our body, and she was looking at the cells. She saw that every cell had on it these receptors, and they were dancing and wiggling, and she realized these receptors, which were all over our body, were seeking chemicals. That's how chemicals worked. Morphine or addictive medications or sugar, for example, send a message to the cell by hitting the receptor, which opens the door to the cell. She then said that our neurotransmitters, which jump between the axons and dendrites to send their message, okay, neuropeptides, okay, and hormones, which are made by many glands in our body, they send a message through our thought process, yes, our thought process, to the rest of the body. The heart has a lot of receptors, the pancreas, the liver, even your skin. So how you think sends out messages to your body. Then she discovered that your Army, Navy, and Air Force, your defense system, made them too. Yeah, the monocytes make the same neurotransmitters, neuropeptides. As a matter of fact, it's been discovered that 75% of your long-term feel-good neurotransmitters are made in your gut. Would you believe it? So what you eat is very important. So the mind and the body are connected. Still today, although she published a book called Molecules of Emotion, then I wrote a book after that called The Mind Body. You notice the brain on my forehead there. Because I was a neurosurgeon for 45 years, but maybe 35 years ago, I noticed a lot of the patients I was looking at, they were not their X-ray. They were totally different. So I always would ask them, what's going on in your life? What kind of a job you got? What are the stress situations? Do you smoke? Use alcohol? Are you constantly on the internet? Do you do anything relaxing, for example, like take a walk or relate to nature or whatever? All that causes secretions of neuropeptides, of hormones in your body, neurotransmitters, and they affect your whole body. So nature designed it so we'd seek sugar to stay alive. Animals, for example, are mainly interested in staying alive, food, and reproduction. Those three things run the brain of most animals. We humans have developed this frontal lobe, and through the process added these neurotransmitters that affect us. So it's very easy for us to become addicted to something. So how's the brain organized here? We have in us what's called the nucleus accumbens. Would you believe it? 1 millimeter in size. A lot of the messages from the brain through the limbic system, the hippocampus, the brain stem, send messages there. Dopamine is secreted, and we're in heaven. We feel great. So we can do it ourselves. But I'll tell you what else does it. Cigarettes, alcohol, sex, relaxing exercises, for example, can do this, and many other chemicals that you might bring into the body. Marijuana, for example, can do this. You light up a cigarette every few minutes, another cigarette, because you're trying to feel good. So this is part of the addictive circuitry. Actually, in our body, we have about 3 or 4 circuitries. Yeah, we have endorphins. Those are hormones made in our own body to make us feel good. We exercise or sing a song, or when I'm tap dancing, endorphins get secreted, and I feel better. We have the cannabinoid system. Yeah, close relative to the marijuana name, for example, the cannabinoid system, which also can make us feel good. Then we have the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, adrenaline and acetylcholine being the relaxer. These are designed in our body, so how we influence them, for example, we give a hug or exude love, causes secretion of certain chemicals, whether it's fear. Fear really is the basis of most addictions. You have fears, scarcity, thinking of the past, thinking of the future, judgment, that we self-judge ourselves, and then scarcity. That's the path to addiction, okay? So it's, most people are addicted to something, they're fearful of the past and the future. They judge themselves a great deal. And then they think there's scarcity in the world, so they take something, they light up that cigarette or have that drink of alcohol. While another person might be like myself, I get up in the morning and I hug the cats, I hug the wife. That causes secretion of my own endorphins. Go down and have a cup of coffee. My nucleus accumbens is lighting up even more. Then I sit down and start reading, which I do in the morning, and I feel even better. Then look outside, and like this morning, 5 baby deer walked by with 3 of their mothers eating out of my bird feeders and things that dropped down from the bird feeders. And Woody, my friend, the woodchucker, lives under the house for 9 years now. Okay, 9 years. My friend, Woody chose me his teeth and he starts eating. Do you think I feel better? Do you see the point? All this influences our thought system on the addictive pathway. So let's go on this path. So what is addiction? Some people would say it's a disease, but I'd be this inclined to think it's a disease because we're all sort of addicted to something. And so it's not due to a weak mind. You're not an addict because of a weak mind. You're not eating too much sugar because you're a weak mind, or taking the narcotics because you ever meet a weak-minded person. But what is a problem is that your thought process may not be appropriate. There's not enough love. You don't love yourself, okay? You're constantly looking for things outside of yourself. And you're thinking, constantly remembering the past when you'd be best to forget it. You can't change the past, but you could change the future. So after a while, we start smoking more or drinking more or gambling more or using technology more. And after a while, we develop a craving. We just got to do it. I just got to have that cigarette. Can you imagine the path the smoker is on? Every few minutes. I feel great. Nucleus accumbens lights up. I feel wonderful. I'm in heaven. Then nicotine gets metabolized and it drops at a low level, and you got to light up again. That's your life. And every cell of your body is affected by it. Alcohol, similar type thing, and there's stages to alcohol addiction. At first, it may be just a glass of wine once a week, and then it's one a day, and then it's two, and there's three. So there's a path to becoming addicted. A lot of people who are on the path to addiction to alcohol, for example, will live in a world of denial. You might point it out to them. I was having dinner with a couple the other day, and he had a martini, and he was trying to get me to order one. And that's a sign sometimes of addiction, that you want other people to drink with you, okay? So that's in the stages of addiction. But people can develop an overwhelming craving. I remember having patients in the hospital who would, when they used to allow smoking years ago in the staircase, nurse said, he's getting up every half hour to have a cigarette. Well, the nicotine level was going up and down, and he constantly had to light up. Okay. The next stage in the addictive pathway is that you're willing to get into harm's way. Yeah, you're hiding it. You're hiding the food. You're hiding the cigarettes. You might even steal some or take some. You're at work, and now they manufacture cigarettes that are a lot more powerful, and that you can very quickly light up to satisfy your addictive pathway. These cigarette companies are doing this, and it's changing your brain chemistry. Yeah, it's changing your brain chemistry. And after a while, some of these receptors die out, and so when you're taking the addictive substance, your brain doesn't light up as readily, so you need to smoke more, you need to drink more, whatever, you need to eat more sugar, and now you're starting to get overweight and develop the illnesses of, say, type 2 diabetes. For example, we can be sugar addicts. Years ago, I wrote a book. I'd like to hold it up for you right here. And you got to admit, just look at the picture. Just look at the picture. And that almost tells the story. I called the book The New Slavery. Why did I call it that? Because slaves in the 1700s were used to farm sugar cane, because that's the only way you could make it profitable. They did not give them breakfast. They didn't give them lunch. So to survive, this population would eat sugar cane themselves every day. So that changed their genetic structure eventually. And that is, to me, and I've seen pictures of them with a cane in their hand, and to me, that's why certain ethnic and racial groups have much higher rates of being overweight, obese, and type 2 diabetes, because it changed their genes. But it's gene expression. And then they gave them Southern cooking and started eating more sugary fried foods, and now their diabetic rate is just totally out of hand. 90% probably have diabetes. They're addicted to sugar. It makes them feel good. It's shameful that our government has not, they support the price of sugar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. Yeah. And the lobbyists, frankly, are killing and harming our nature. I'm just speaking the truth here. We should not support the price of corn, which is a sugar, $40 billion a year, resulting in an epidemic of type 2 diabetes, sugar addiction. And you see in this cover that I feel, and you notice, it's of all racial groups, that we are slaves to sugar. We're addicted to sugar, causing us to gain weight. Some become obese. And if you're overweight, you're type 2 diabetic unless you prove me through blood testing that you're not by proper testing. Proper testing means serum insulins and glucose tolerance tests, which is not done today. Mm-hmm. It's been known since 1975, where Dr. Joseph Kraft published a book, and he's on YouTube even today, 92 years old. He's died since then, a couple of years ago, but he explains very carefully that if you want to know if diabetes or not, get a serum insulin. It ain't just the blood sugar. That's rarely done, but it's on my YouTube shows, it's on my TV shows. I teach people for free at the Three Rivers Pharmacy, like I did this morning. I saw some diabetics to help them get rid of it because the people are addicted to sugar. So it makes them feel good. So we have to figure out other ways to make people feel good, okay? And so there's been a change in our chemistry, and then after a while become physically and mentally dependent on it. Yeah, there's physical addiction and mental addiction. So let's keep going on this path. So a good 30 million people are addicted to something, and probably it's a lot bigger than that because the ones are not addictive to some of things like cigarettes and alcohol and narcotics or technology. The only thing in their life may be that they're overweight. You say they're not an addict. Well, they are a sugar addict. Mm-hmm. They're sugar addicts. And they need to be properly tested. You are what your blood tests show. Actually, they have, I call them the toefish, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. You are what your blood work is. That's called a glucose tolerance test, fasting 1 hour, 2 hour, along with fasting insulin, fasting 1 hour, fasting 2 hour. A good 5-10 million people are using illegal drugs, and 15 million physicians are writing prescriptions with the cause of 50 million people. What the cause was, it started with a physician's prescription. That's changing, though. Now it appears that maybe the gateway drug may be more marijuana, actually. Mm-hmm. You know, they're legalizing it in every state. That runs a 9% addiction rate among adults, 17% among children. And if they smoke marijuana every day throughout high school, say odds of becoming an addict of some kind, almost 80%. Yeah, they smoke cigarettes, marijuana, some alcohol, and the odds of being a drug addict runs around 80%. So we need to rethink this process. So to okay, for example, marijuana in the state, it's along the path of addictions. Maybe it'll save you from opioid addiction, but it's an addictive pathway. So after that, what's the path? A habit, dependency, then tolerance. You constantly more and more. There's tolerance, physical, mental dependency, and then now you are may very well be an addict. So it's a national travesty, okay? And pain has been one of the most common ways to become addicted, but there are many other addictions which I mentioned to you already. It can be gambling. It can even be to buy something every day. Some people are addicted to buying things. Mm-hmm. I know somebody like that. 20 credit cards, for example, although they can't afford it. And constantly, every day, that's how they feel better. And I know a very well-to-do person, fortunately, a husband will survive this, that every day she's either redoing her house or her kitchen or buying something. Let me tell you about an interesting story. It's been maybe 10 years now that I met a 3-star general. I read about him in U.S. News on the way to get on a plane to go to Florida. And what it was, a story of a general three-star general named Fridovich. And he had he felt he was now addicted to narcotics. And the way it happened, he had a back problem and some back procedures. And they injected him, and then they gave him narcotics, and now he felt he's addicted to them. But then, being a general, families would call him and said, we send our sons to go to war with you. And then he studied it and found out 30% of the soldiers who had seen a physician in the Army, they had seen a soldier in the Army, 30% of them were addicted to narcotics. He told, that's right in the paper. So you know me, I got on the phone, and sure enough, we found him. I called him, and he was in Orlando. And sure enough, he was willing to drive down to my condo in Naples. It was Naples, to Naples. And I sat down with him and explained to him my knowledge of addiction and what was going on in the Army. And here's a picture of General Fridovich, proof. You see the beach in the background, and you see my first book on pain laying there actually on the table. So I spoke to him, and I told him I was willing to join the U.S. Army and maybe head a program teaching the people in the services about avoiding addiction and everything. And he emailed me back, and he said, well, the Surgeon General of the Army didn't think that was a good idea, so it never happened. But a couple of years went by, and I noticed a new pain doctor sitting in the lounge at Lutheran Hospital, who'd been part, and he was working with a pain center that had a little history of, after sticking your back, there's a narcotic. So I spoke to him and found out there were 5 Army bases now, one in Hawaii, Washington, Georgia, one in Florida, I think, that where the rehab centers for the Army and the VA were no longer prescribing narcotics. Then I asked the pain doctor, I said, how come that happened? He says, well, General Fridovich changed the whole system. Interesting. Yeah, it's a true story. And then I got actually a medal in the mail. He didn't call me, he just sent me a friendship medal. So I appreciate that. So they did do something. And so the VA and the Army, a lot less narcotic scripts now. So the disease of addiction is not a defect in personality. Addiction, incidentally, just like alcohol can shrink your brain. I, being a neurosurgeon, saw many patients with a shrunken brain from chronic alcoholics where the brain was that much off the skull. Mm-hmm. And that will not grow back, maybe a little bit, but not very much, because they develop blood clots. I put holes in the skull, and the clot will run out. 1,000 of those people I operate, probably, so I'm very familiar with that. But also narcotic addiction will shrink your brain. Not as much as that, but it will. Now, if you stop drinking, for example, some of the brain reforms, but not very little, maybe 20%, but you won't get further brain damage. Other addictions, like narcotic addiction, the brain seems to regrow more than that. Or cigarette smoking, most of the effects of cigarette smoking can be reversed over, say, 1 year's time. So it causes atrophy of the cortex, limbic area, the cerebellum back here. People get unsteady, for example, and can be partially reversed. And it's especially severe with alcohol. So again, more on the myths of addiction. To start with, it's not necessarily a personality disorder, although alcohol addiction more commonly runs in the family, okay? Like in alcohol, once you beat the addiction, it can't be done, especially with the help of counseling, or just quit. I know somebody personally that just quit. and alcohol was no longer hitting his receptor. It was interesting, that person I know that did that, they managed to do it like that. Most people need counseling. That person then substituted. Remember, there was something missing in her life. Maybe she was fearful. Maybe not enough love. For example, she substituted alcohol. She substituted sugar. Started eating more, and a very thin person became a much bigger person. So you have to find something to satisfy those receptors. That's a better habit. Okay, walking, singing, dancing, tennis, pickleball, playing a musical instrument, whatever you love to do. A walk in nature. For example, I could do every morning, half hour. I sing to the birds. They sing back. I had a red-winged blackbird try to land on my hand the other day, matter of fact. Could have been risky, I don't know. So a person who has an addiction is not a loser or a sinner or a wounded soul. So talking is not the only treatment, okay? But it can be part of the treatment. If you have a good counselor, you're very lucky. So, and it's not all about genetics. You're not just meant to be a drug addict or an alcoholic. You actually have to do the activity. Then they developed, 1970s, 1980s, developed MRI, functional MRI scans, PET scans, SPECT scans, where they could demonstrate the damage. They could demonstrate these centers. Remember, I spoke to you about the nucleus accumbens and the tegmentum and the limbic system. They would just light up by functional studies. They can do it with blood, with sugar. And so we're a long way towards being able to understand this better, okay? And so remember I said drugs and alcohol, they change the number, the type, and the ratio of neurotransmitters. Receptors, you develop tolerance, the receptors die out. Now you need much more of the substance to stay addicted. And we have back of the nucleus accumbens that lights up is the serotonin center. It's a little further back. It's connected, though, to nucleus accumbens and the brainstem and the limbic system. They're all interconnected. The serotonin is the long-term fix. You'll feel better, okay? I play pickleball for an hour, and I feel better for 4 or 5 hours. That's the serotonin being secreted probably in my gut. Mm-hmm. And my gut affects my brain. It releases the chemicals, and they hit receptors in my brain. Makes me feel good. So GABA is a chemical, it's a relaxer. It's a braking system, okay? Glutamine accelerates and increases receptor sites. So we can have permanent and some reversible brain damage. So brain can be partially repaired, especially with drugs. Atrophy, shrinkage, permanent shrinkage is more common with alcohol, okay? But addiction can be a lifetime illness. If you have gotten over alcohol addiction, even one drink can lead to you're at it again. Same with cigarettes, even just one cigarette. Some can, have a cigarette once a month, forget it, whether for most people it's zero tolerance, okay? So it does take 6 to 12 months before you might have significant repair of your brain, okay? But what are the core beliefs of the addictive thought system? Remember, it's your mind that does this, okay? I'm alone in a cruel, harsh, and unforgiving world. That's what the person that's addicted or pre-addiction thinks like. Fear, scarcity, thinking of the past all the time and the future, not living in the moment. Remember, meditation is a lot about living in the moment. If you can't quiet your mind, use a mantra, repeat a word, God, 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 music, whatever. Think of a word that quiets your mind. No past, no future. In the moment. That's meditation. Meditation is a good way to develop some control of your mind. Maybe even in the morning. Incidentally, you can get a copy of Dr. Rudy's 20 prescriptions for stress reduction. You can get it at Three Rivers Pharmacy. Pick it up free. It tells you how to get over stress, for example. So, and don't be judgmental about everything, okay? When you always judge everything and not living in the moment, that's the addictive thought process, okay? I got to get all that I can. Hopelessness. I'm hopeless. That's the addictive thought process, okay? My way is the only right way. I'm always judging what other people are doing. I'm always judging what I am doing. Always ready to worry. Turn on the music, man. Take tap dance lessons like I do. When the music is playing and I'm tapping, I play the Bee Gees for about 20 minutes. Do you think I'm thinking of anything? No. And I feel good for a long time. And so don't think about the past and the future. Mindfulness is living in the present moment with love. Give a hug. So fear is real. Don't question it. Mistakes go for judgment and punishment. There's no correction in the learning process. So other people are responsible for the way I feel. No, I'm responsible for the way I feel. Okay, and I don't always have to pit myself against others. Just for a moment, sit still, breathe deeply, maybe repeat a mantra, quiet your mind. Hey, the world's not going away, and you're still alive. Your heart is beating. Get rid of the fear. Okay, so my self-esteem is not dependent on pleasing you. It's about pleasing me, okay? I can't control other people's behavior. Well, I can control mine, okay? So our thoughts are critical in the addictive process. We look outside ourselves for happiness when we should be working on our own happiness through our own endorphins, through our own cannabinoid system that nature built on us to feel good. We just have to learn the activities that make us feel good. Yoga, Tai Chi, pickleball, tennis, golf, walking, singing a song, whatever that you enjoy, playing cards. And you have to get rid of this past and the future. So fear, judgment, looking at the past and future, and scarcity is the path to addiction. You have to work on that. So let go. Love versus fear, okay? And don't worry about future pain. Life is like this. It's, even for myself, it's for everyone. So narcotics give some relief because it disturbs the sense of time. You don't think of the past in the future, minutes, hours, days. They're blunted out. That's why people feel better with them. They're not in trouble. You got to stay on them forever, and you need more and more and more. And eventually you're not working, breaking up the family, homelessness. So there's a disturbed timeline with narcotics. And so, but remember, our own endorphins also release hormone-type substances. You can make yourself feel good, and they're not addictive. Our own endorphin system that makes us feel good is not addictive. And you might say, well, Rudy, you're addicted to pickleball, well, or tennis or whatever. Well, it's not really true. That's not the definition, but sometimes I even wonder about it. Seeing you want to play every day makes me feel good every day. So we have excessive self-judgment. That's part of the addictive process. Guilt, low self-esteem. You can't constantly be judging and have peace of mind at the same time, okay? So when you extend love, you receive love. I remember having a nurse years ago, 6'6", black guy, long hair, never dressed well. But I tell you, the whole hospital loved him. The patients loved him. When he had moved to Indianapolis, I used to see 3,000 or 4,000 phone calls. I had another nurse retire. I got maybe 10. Okay. And the reason was, I think he extended love to the people. I'd have children call me up and say, could Brian come back and see me again in the pediatric floor? I had this happen. But I tell you, we both, I think, extended love, because when him and I made rounds together, we spoke to people on the elevator, going down the hall. We're always nice to people. We extended love to the patients, and the response was unbelievable. And I hope Brian is doing well. I'm sure he's doing well. I even practiced on his son. His son seemed to be very shy, and I think we babysitted him in the office a little bit. And he'd come in, and he was very shy, didn't want to talk to me. And one day I started calling him Dr. Brian Jr. That's about his child we're talking about 10 years old. And you know what? His face lit up. From then on in, he was Dr. Brian. And that went on for a couple of years. And I watched him kind of go up. And then one day he called me. He came in from Indianapolis with his son, and we met, get a cup of coffee. And his son said to me, Dr. Cashman, I'm really disappointed in myself. I said, why is that? He says, I'm not going to be a doctor anymore. I'm going to be a basketball player. It was disappointing to me. But I go show you how obviously I extended love to this young boy. And it helped him get a lot of self-esteem. So I think the thought system is consciously telling us that we're short on something all the time. We don't have enough of this, not enough money, not enough possessions, not enough love, seeking to be whole. There's a void in me that needs to be filled. Alcohol, cigarettes, technology, buying all the time, gambling all the time, trying to fulfill our feel-good system. So these are irrational beliefs. My self-esteem is not dependent upon my being approved by everybody on this planet. Okay? I must excel, achieve, win, display confidence at all times. It is not necessary. We can quietly just extend love to the people around us and our family. So all things that are wrong in my life, we tend to blame other people instead of maybe ourselves. And if external situations in my life aren't exactly what I want them to be, I must feel tense, worry endlessly, and expect disaster to occur within seconds. That's the addictive thought process. Get rid of it, okay? And avoiding painful issues and stuff down my emotions, I'll be safe and happy. It's not true, okay? I should be very involved and upset about other people's problems. No. There is not one way, right way to view the world. So if you're watching MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News all the time, there's going to be a problem there, because they are so concentrating only the bad things that occur instead of the right things that occur. You'll be upset all the time. So let's develop a love-based thought system. Love, present moment, mindfulness, acceptance, a world of abundance. The world will never be 100% for any of us, okay? So what are the stages of drug usage? Experimenting, social usage. We smoke or drink more in social groups. We only socialize with people who smoke or who drink. Then it gets to be a habit. Then we start looking forward to it, and we start thinking about it. We can't wait to meet X at the bar. Then become physically and mentally dependent. And then it changes the neural activity of our brain, and now we're an addict. But remember what I said. A lot of times you can get over it, but some are tougher than others. Alcohol, opioids, it's tougher. But there would be some that would say that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. I debated that once on one of these TV shows, and the lady, I think, that was on the sugar side, I think actually she won the debate. I thought I had, but after thinking about it a week or two, I think sugar is more addictive, yes. And I find out, I wonder if you know this. Did you know that cigarettes have sugar in them? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Read Gary Taubes' book, The Case Against Sugar. He put a whole chapter in there. Never made anybody that knew that. Yeah, in 1910 or so, they decided we need to increase, the cigarette companies decided we need to increase the addiction rate to cigarettes. And they figured out, they studied at the Monell Institute in Philadelphia, they studied and found out if they could add sugar to cigarettes, more nicotine gets into our system, you get more addicts. And how this happens is that smoke from regular cigarettes is alkaline, okay? Sugar makes the alveoli in the lungs acidic. They open up, allow more nicotine into the blood system, and the addiction rate doubled. Cigarette sales doubled. There's sugar in cigarettes. I bet you did not know that. Gary Taubes, one whole chapter on that. It's scientific. And for some of us, these addictions are automatic. You're on the phone, you light up, okay? Vietnam veterans, this is kind of interesting. A war I was in also as a neurosurgeon at Portsmouth Naval. Many of the Vietnam, the horrors they went through, okay? And then I think the Vietnamese made drugs readily available to addict them. And 95% of them came home were on drugs, on opiates. But 95% of them were able to cure it. And there have been opinions about that. It only had 5% persisted. Let's think about General Fridovich, where 30% at home became addicted. What's the difference? You know, I wonder about, frankly, that was a different era in time. And in that time, physicians did not write as many prescriptions for pain versus in the Vietnam time. So the addiction did not continue. And maybe the stresses were worse in the Vietnam War. Is a possibility too. The stresses were different. Availability might have been different. But this time, the soldiers, pain was looked at differently. The OxyContin epidemic, for example, they were really pushing narcotics at physicians to use them. We had a definition of pain 0 to 10. Number 9, here's your narc. A system that was put upon us by pharmaceutical companies and the NIH and the government. What's the level of your pain? Here's the narc. So that was involved in here too. So it was a different time, okay? Instinct. And what I call the nocebo negative speak. So the 0 to 10 was negative. What's the level of your pain? It's 9, here's your thing. That's going on in Colorado right now. There's a pretty good tax on marijuana sales, 40% almost, okay? But if you go to a specialist and tell them that what's the level of your pain, it's 8 or 9, you get a marijuana card and your tax is only 2%. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So money is involved in these things, okay? So what medications can you use, for example? You've heard of Antabuse, which people with alcohol problems can take, and if they have a drink, they start vomiting, and that can be effective. Vivitrol is an injection you take once a month. Methadone, you see methadone clinics now for narcotics. What they're doing there is methadone doesn't quite give you the high, but you still take a narcotic. Methadone is a narcotic. You're not free, but you don't have the highs, and the suicides are down. So part of the medical establishment will push methadone clinics, for example. I mean, there's a point to that. Depends how you weigh, but you're still on a narcotic. You're not a free person, okay? And the lines are long. I see them in town. Suboxone is another one, and pushed quite a bit in our county. Well, it's better than a suicide or overdose, but and I guess I would almost favor that, but you're still not free, okay? So what some of these do, they block the action of the drug, and some produce the good chemicals, make us feel better, okay? Vivitrol blocks the receptor. Camtrol heals the brain, actually. So Vivitrol works for narcotics and alcohol a month later. It blocks the receptor sites, okay? Reduces cravings, maybe 90% for some people. So drugs do have a place. And Camtrol balances the neurotransmitters in your brain. GABA causes relaxation. Glutamate revs you up, steps on the accelerator of feeling good. So it's interesting to know the chemistry of this a little bit. And the revolutionary approach has been Suboxone, which I mentioned is used quite a bit in this county. It's a partial agonist to make you feel better. Less craving, no high, gums up the receptor sites, this opiate resistance, withdrawal symptoms are less, and it's related to nucleus accumbens. Remember the one that I'm in heaven. So they have side effects too, and but Ativan, Motrin, Clonidine are used to transition to Suboxone. So you may need a counselor if you're trying to get rid of your addiction, for example. Then there's the 12-step program for alcoholism, where and it works better with a partner if you get somebody to talk to. That's how it works. And you're dealing from a psychological, familial, legal, medical, social problems you're trying to avoid. There's definitely a value of the 12-step program. It really has you turn yourself over to your religion, which in some people, it's what it takes. It's had its place. Other people have no faith in anything, so that it can work without that, okay? So, and then the people who say, I'm a legal addict, they go to the doctor and here's the script. I had that happen to me in the emergency room a number of times because doctors don't understand chronic pain. They keep on giving you the narc. Well, you always, a few months later, you need to up the dose. So the doctors will say, I'm too busy to talk to the patient because it would take a lot of time. And what the doctor needs to ask, what's going on in your life, and to understand why they are addicted. And a counselor would be best, no doubt about it. You had counseling. And some people, here's the script, they just don't care. So you have to find the right person to deal with your addictions. I think that's important. And Jane Velez Mitchell wrote a book called Addict Nation. I encourage you to read that. I think it's a very good book. I've read it probably 2 or 3 times now. And I would say this too. I have a note here, wear the pink suits. Some of the providers who wrote these scripts all day, I remember reading a letter in the Journal Gazette, $100 million for Medicaid was paid to one, wasn't all paid, but those were the charges. Wear the pink suits, okay? And so wealthy people don't hit the street as legal addicts. And we saw in the newspaper very recently another type of addiction where a person obviously very serious, and he never hit jail. I mean, big time, just a few days. You wonder about that. I'm just trying to bring up a discussion, not passing any judgment here. But I think if we saw more people in pink suits who did this, there wouldn't be much of that going on. Although that clearly has improved. But now marijuana is coming along. Before you know it, I mean, I consider the CBD oil maybe the path to marijuana. I don't know. I wrote a book by that name. I don't know the final answer, but it'd be suspicious. It does come from the marijuana tree, although it can make you feel better. So the prisons are full of poor drug people. We arrested many of them for selling drugs, for example. They may not be taking them themselves, actually. So other patients who seek opioids, a doctor shopping them from doctor to doctor to doctor. And then if you can't get it, they hit the street, okay? And it takes so little to become addicted. 1/2 of a narcotic pill can put a patient into the disease. Mm-hmm. Takes very little. So if you had an operation or something serious, or broke a leg or whatever, short-term use, stop it. They want to hand you a whole bunch of pills because you had a tooth removed, throw them away, flush them down the toilet. Don't leave them at home. Your brothers and sisters or mothers and fathers might grab them. They might even sell them, and that happens. Okay, and pain centers all over the country. I think there's some pain centers now, but the typical thing is you get an injection, and that's where they make the money. And once they're tired of that, they try to sell you something to make sure you come back. Narcotic will work. Okay, so watch out. There should be other ways, a massage, exercise. So it's a bigger problem than we know. So we're driving around in a fork. And so the biggest and fastest growing part of the American drug problem has been prescriptions, but I think it's lessening a little bit now. But I think marijuana may be substituting here. What I hear from a local judge, she said the majority of things that she sees where people are maybe heading for jail or charges is marijuana now. Mm-hmm. So that's on the path. And we spend about $20 billion yearly on drug smugglers. To me, it'd be best use that money for treatment. For example, you know what I'd like to see? That anybody who wants to detox could go to a rehab place for 2 weeks, stay in residency for 2 weeks to make sure they get everything out of their system, and then outpatient personal counseling, and it should be free. Should be free. We can throw a tax on something addictive to pay for it. Cigarettes, alcohol, gambling, whatever. I think the government there is not doing its job. So to me, there's an American drug conspiracy going on here. Law enforcement, federal government, medical community, pharmacy. Millions in jail except for people who are promoting it. You think about it. I'm just trying to open your mind a little bit. And most pain centers make millions of dollars. Hospitals make billions of dollars. So for the upper middle class, it's a lot easier to go to a doctor and get the things, the drugs you need. You can have the prescription addict, okay, he's a legal addict, okay, versus the poor person who can't afford to go there and ends up buying and selling on the street, and he ends up in jail. And so what are we having? A war on drugs, of legal drugs. And in the addict's mind, it's okay because it was prescribed by a doctor. I've talked to patients like that. She makes it easier to cross that line of addiction. Like you go to a dentist and you get 60 pills when you should be given 5. I see this a lot. Dentists are a common source of addicted opioids now. It's true. And the state has worked on this problem, and it's a little tougher for physicians to write you a script for narcs. But there's still a few out there that do it regularly. So the public must participate, except only a few pills. That, I think, will be the biggest thing. And but to hit the emergency room and you walk out with a whole bunch of OxyContin, like someone I know recently did, for a broken arm, couldn't have picked a better drug than OxyContin, which is highly addictive. There are other pain pills out there. It happened to someone dear to me. I don't think OxyContin was necessary. That's my opinion. You can agree or disagree with it. So where have the hippies gone? Use narcotic drugs now. The pain center, the pharmacy, lobbyists should be run out of the country. They are lobbying to promote the 0 to 10 rule, like in Colorado for marijuana dispensaries now. Although the system of 0 to 10 is kind of down. They're beginning to listen a little bit. But the government needs to take action in the public policy. For example, they approved CBD oil, which I think does have some value, but they didn't tell you of the side effects of it, which is something I've written about and I'll be speaking about on Public Access 55 on Monday. I really read a lot about it, okay? So I think in summary, I've told you, educate you a little about the addictive centers in our brain, that we all have them, okay? And you should develop systems, walking in nature, exercising, Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, prayer, love, maybe even a dog and cat. 2 of my cats give me a great deal of love. I have a dog, gives me a love. I have a wife who gives me love. We all need love in our life, every one of us, okay? And try to get the fear out of your life. Do you wake up and you're breathing? That's the beginning of a good day. Think happy thoughts, okay? Maybe, like me, look at the birds and the bird feeders and the animals. Take a walk in nature. I look at the leaves, I look at the trees, I sing to the birds, they're singing back. I even practice some of my songs I'm trying to memorize, just to, it makes you really feel good. Develop a system that brings happiness into your life and push fear away. Fear away and scarcity. Don't think of the past and the future, think of today. It's a beautiful day. Oh, what a beautiful morning. And maybe memorize a couple of songs. Thanks so much for watching this show. I hope you watch some of our other shows. They're all about health and wellness. I have a lot on diabetes, for example, how to get over sugar addiction, which we all have, believe me. After a stressful day, if there's a cookie or a donut laying on the shelf before I go to bed, which I don't allow in the house, I'll be eating it. So it's not a personality defect in any of us. It's just trying to get rid of the stresses of the day. And so watch some of our other shows. Cashman YouTube, for example, would be a good one. 500 TV shows in there. I care about you. I love you. And namaste. See you next time.